Welcome to part 26 of the Ultimate Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg. In this series, we deep dive cases including true crime, mysterious disappearances, myths and legends, strange events, internet mysteries, and more. Also, I upload content 3 to 5 times per week, so make sure to like and subscribe and hit that sweet notification bell so you never miss new content. The Sakhalin Island Sea Wolf. In 2006, a peculiar and mystifying carcass washed ashore on Sakhalin Island, Russia, sparking widespread intrigue and speculation. Dubbed the Sakhalin Island Sea Wolf, this entity was found by soldiers on patrol of the Pacific coast of Russia, an area known for its rich biodiversity. The cryptozoology community quickly became enraptured with this creature due to the unusual nature of the carcass. This is another one of those times where I have to tell you to pause if you're not looking at the screen and take a look at this, because this is a really fascinating photograph. The carcass measured an imposing 15 feet in length and exhibited a series of peculiar features that defied immediate classification. Its body appeared at first glance to be semi-furred, presenting an odd juxtaposition of mammalian and aquatic traits. The creature possessed a gaping, wolf-like mouth equipped with multiple rows of sharp teeth, a feature some cryptid enthusiasts suggest was not commonly associated with known sea creatures. This anomaly led to its initial moniker, stemming from its wolf-like oral structure and its mysterious aquatic origin. According to some theorists, it became readily apparent that the creature was not easily classifiable within the known branches of marine life. According to them, the bones and teeth did not resemble those of any known whale, fish, or seal species, and its skeletal remains suggested a bizarre amalgamation of characteristics. Internet rumors suggest that in the aftermath of its discovery, the carcass was taken into custody by a Russian agency for in-depth analysis. These rumors further suggest that the true nature of the cryptid may have been concealed by the Russian government. Despite these interesting theories, there's a much more down-to-earth explanation which adequately explains the Sakhalin Island sea wolf. The features which made the sea wolf intriguing also gave away the true origin of the creature. The quote, wolf-like skull was more accurately described as a mammalian skull, and what sort of large mammalian creatures occupy the ocean? Dolphins and whales. Further, the quote, fur-covered skin is actually the connective tissue in the muscles of whales and dolphins. This connective tissue decays at an extremely slow rate, long after the actual muscle mass has degenerated, and thus gives the appearance of fur on the carcass. Though the exact species of whale or dolphin isn't known, it's speculated that it's either an orca or a beluga whale. Also, if you're a dedicated viewer of this series, you may note that this cryptid bears a lot in common with the Sakhalin woolly whale covered in part 23 of the series. The 2003 Angola Boeing 727 disappearance. On May 25, 2003, a Boeing 727 disappeared from Quatro de Fevereiro Airport in Luanda, Angola. This aircraft, once part of a major airline's fleet, had been reconfigured to transport diesel fuel, devoid of its passenger seats. On that fateful day, shortly before sunset, two men, Ben Padilla, a pilot from the United States, and John Mutantu, a mechanic from the Republic of the Congo, are believed to have boarded the aircraft. And note here that I say believed, as no eyewitnesses are confirmed to have seen either man get on board the aircraft, despite neither being certified to fly a Boeing 727 and lacking the requisite crew. Ben Padilla is suspected to have been at the controls. The plane commenced taxiing without authorization, failed to communicate with the control tower, and took off into the night, never to be seen again. The plane was filled with 14,000 liters of fuel, which meant that it could travel anywhere from Ghana to Namibia, north and south, or out in the Atlantic, or to Tanzania from west to east. This aircraft's disappearance is surrounded by numerous theories and speculation, with the lack of any concrete evidence or facts opening up the door to almost any possibility. One theory suggests that the two men were forced to hijack the plane against their will and deliver it to an unknown location. Once they delivered the plane, according to this theory, Padilla and Mutantu were disposed of, and the plane was repurposed. Another theory suggests that the two men were in on a scam and assumed new identities after the hijacking. However, neither of these theories have any evidence to back them up and are entirely speculative at this point. Others have speculated that the two men may not have been on board the plane at all, as there were no confirmed sightings of them getting on the plane. According to this theory, the two men were slain and disposed of prior to the theft of the plane by people affiliated with the actual plane jackers. However, like all theories in this case, this is entirely speculative in nature. Given the mysterious nature of the vanishing, other more speculative theories have been suggested. Naturally, with no trace of the plane having ever been found, alien abductions and dimensional warps have been proposed as possible solutions. However, once again there is no evidence in favor of these positions. At present, there appears to be no active investigation into the whereabouts of the plane or the two men. The 1960 U-2 aircraft incident. The 1960 U-2 incident marked a significant escalation in Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. On May 1, 1960, a U.S. Lockheed U-2 spy plane, piloted by Francis Gary Powers, was allegedly shot down by the Soviet Union during a reconnaissance mission over Soviet territory. The incident exposed a covert U.S. operation aimed at gathering intelligence on Soviet military capabilities, particularly their intercontinental ballistic missile programs. The U-2 aircraft, designed to fly at high altitudes beyond the reach of Soviet fighter jets and missiles, was part of a strategic U.S. effort to monitor Soviet military installations. The plane was initially brought to a joint Turkish-American airbase located in Turkey, where it was outfitted for the mission over the Soviet Union. From there, it was ferried to Peshawar, in Pakistan, aboard a C-124 transport plane. And to revive an ancient meme format to describe this situation, "Yo dog, I heard you like airplanes, so I put an airplane in your airplane so you can fly with an airplane in your airplane." But I digress. The plane took off from Pakistan, intending to photograph key sites within the Soviet Union, including missile sites at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, before landing in Norway. However, the plane was detected and allegedly shot down by a Soviet surface-to-air missile near Ekaterinburg, Russia. Powers ejected and was captured upon landing. I note that while he had a self-ending kit on him, he didn't use it, contrary to his apparent orders in such a situation. Also, in what can only be described as a massive screw-up, the Soviets accidentally shot down a MiG, slaying the pilot on board. The official cause of this pilot's untimely end wasn't made public until the fall of the Soviet Union. As an interesting aside, because of the cover-up, the Soviet Union heavily decorated the surface-to-air missile defense squadron which shot down the MiG. That must have been one of the most somber decoration ceremonies ever, with all the parties knowing about the MiG situation, but being unable to talk about it. The incident occurred at a time when U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev were preparing for a summit in Paris, aimed at easing Cold War tensions. Initially, the U.S. government attempted to cover up the espionage mission, claiming the aircraft was a weather plane that had strayed off course. However, the Soviet Union presented evidence of the spy plane, including photographs of Powers and wreckage from the U-2, thereby exposing the U.S. espionage operation. The fallout from the incident was immediate and far-reaching. Khrushchev demanded an apology from the United States and a halt to the reconnaissance flights. When Eisenhower refused to apologize or acknowledge the flights as espionage, it led to the collapse of the Paris summit. The incident not only heightened Cold War tensions, but also had a lasting impact on U.S.-Soviet relations, which were approaching an all-time low. Powers was convicted of espionage by the Soviet Union and sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment, plus 7 years of hard labor. He was released in 1962 in a prisoner exchange for Soviet intelligence officer Rudolf Abel. Well, that's the official version of how things went down. Now let's get to the mystery. In 2010, a CIA report on the incident was declassified, indicating that U.S. officials never believed Francis Gary Powers' version of events. The CIA report references a National Security Agency report as definitive evidence for why this is the case. However, the NSA report itself is still classified at present. However, the CIA report suggests that the plane began to lose significant altitude for no apparent reason prior to the apparent interception by surface-to-air missiles. The CIA report alleges that Francis Gary Powers may not have been shot down. They allege that he may have been attempting to land his plane for the purposes of defection to the Soviet Union with the high-tech plane, and his knowledge of it as a bargaining chip. In the 1990s, Fletcher Prouty, who was a chief of special operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President John F. Kennedy, decided to spill the beans on the true purpose of the operation. According to Prouty, the operation was designated as a disinformation campaign against the Soviets, as well as a means to disrupt the Paris summit. Prouty claimed that the U-2 plane involved had previously been crashed and was rebuilt to lower specifications. He also claimed that the camera was equipped with a subpar camera, which was not in line with the cutting-edge cameras that it could have been equipped with at the time. However, perhaps most astonishingly, he claimed that the engine contained insufficient fuel to reach its destination. Given all these irregularities, this would require Francis Gary Powers to have been in on it, which, if that was the case, talk about bravery. Interestingly, Francis Gary Powers succumbed in a helicopter crash in Encino, California in 1977. In a heroic turn of events, Powers could likely have saved himself by conducting an emergency landing in an area where a group of children were playing. Instead, Powers decided to take evasive action at the last moment, saving the children but unfortunately costing his own life and the life of the cameraman aboard. At any rate, the truth of the 1960 U-2 incident may one day be known once all classified documentation is out in the open. Kusi, the Japanese Nessie. Kusi is a cryptid said to inhabit Lake Kusharo in Hokkaido, Japan. The fascination around Kusi mirrors the fascination and intrigue surrounding Scotland's Loch Ness Monster. This Japanese lake monster derives its name as a nod to Nessie, as many lake monsters worldwide do since Nessie mania in the 1930s. Lake Kusharo, nestled within the Akan National Park in eastern Hokkaido, is a caldera lake, i.e., a lake formed by significant volcanic activity. This lake is significant for its connection to Ainu culture, an ethnic group largely centered around Hokkaido. The Ainu people have long granted spiritual significance to the lake. A statue of Kusi on the lake's shore stands as a testament to the monster's entrenched position in local folklore. It also reflects the unusual human tendency to create statues of lake monsters. If you've ever watched my cryptid series, I dubbed this odd phenomenon the quote, law of lake monsters, which states that it isn't really a legitimate lake monster until it has a statue made of it. The tales of Kusi began to spread in the 1950s, rapidly becoming a part of Japan's collection of modern myths. Descriptions of Kusi suggest a creature bearing a striking resemblance to the plesiosaur, a long-extinct marine reptile, with reports estimating its length to be around 30 to 60 feet. This portrayal aligns Kusi with many other lake monsters reported worldwide, which are often described as serpentine or dinosaur-like in appearance. Kusi mania was in full swing in the 1970s, when numerous expeditions were sent out to investigate the possible existence of the creature. Around this time, A number of photographs were captured of what people claim to be the lake monster, some of which I've attached to this video. Theories as to what this lake monster are range from a relict population of plesiosaur to a floating branch to a hoax involving a whooper swan. Quick note about that last theory: Lake Kouros is home to numerous whooper swans, all of which have incredibly long necks, making this theory potentially plausible. Take a look and let me know in the comments what you think these pictures could be depicting. The disappearance of Glenn Field. In September 2018, Glenn Field, an experienced outdoorsman, intended to spend the winter living off the land and making his way to Yellowknife, in the Northwest Territories in Canada. Quick word on the Northwest Territories for non-Canadian viewers. This region is amongst the most sparsely populated in the world. Field brought along his 3 dogs, and as an experienced outdoorsman brought along appropriate supplies sufficient to last him through the winter. His last known sighting occurred in the spring of 2019, glimpsed from above by a passing pilot. However, given Glenn Field's solitary nature, he wasn't reported missing until October 2019, nearly half a year after his last sighting. Despite thorough searches, including an extensive aerial survey by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in October 2019, no trace of Field or his campsite has since been uncovered. The RCMP continued to send out search parties until the end of 2020, but these searches were entirely fruitless. In 2022, Glenn Field's brother submitted an application to the court to have his brother declared legally deceased, which was granted in the same year. Despite this, Glenn Field's case remains open and is still being actively investigated by the Yellowknife branch of the RCMP. Theories about what transpired with Glenn Field are speculative at best, largely due to the absence of any concrete evidence or clues. The environment itself presents numerous challenges, ranging from the severe cold to potential wildlife encounters, which could lead to various natural explanations. According to the RCMP, there's no suspicion that foul play was involved. However, from the evidence that has been released publicly, I don't see how foul play could be ruled out. I note that unlike numerous wilderness disappearances like this, I wasn't able to find any paranormal explanations for what happened to Glenn Field. However, I suspect that this is likely due to the obscure nature of his case. Oddly, despite the unusual circumstances of his disappearance, his story never garnered any meaningful attention in Canada. If you have any information with respect to Glenn Field's case, please contact the Yellowknife RCMP office with information. The Getty Kouros. This suggestion comes from a close personal friend of mine who prefers to remain anonymous. The Getty Kouros, a statue purported to date back to the 6th century BC, has long been the center of debate over its authenticity. Purchased by the J. Paul Getty Museum in 1986, the statue immediately drew skepticism from art historians for its fresh appearance and other details that seemed quote-unquote off. Despite initial scientific analyses supporting its antiquity, numerous factors have contributed to ongoing suspicions about its authenticity. But first, let's take a quick aside to look into what a Kouros actually is. A Kouros is an ancient Greek statue type, representing a young, standing male who has apparently lost his clothing. Originating in the Archaic period, around 650 to 500 BC, these sculptures are characterized by their frontal stance, with one foot forward and hands clenched by the sides. They embody the ancient Greek ideal of youth and physical perfection, displaying stylized anatomical features. Each Kouros, while adhering to a standardized form, exhibits regional variations in style and execution, reflecting the artistic conventions of different parts of Greece. Notably, the wide variety of what can constitute a Kouros is partly what led to the controversy over the Getty Kouros. Technical analysis of the Getty Kouros highlighted both similarities and discrepancies with known archaic Kouros. While it adheres to the general measurements and proportions seen in genuine examples, there are a number of unusual features that have experts baffled. For instance, the Getty Kouros has asymmetrical ears, which has not been observed amongst any ancient regional variations. Detailed observations of the statue's motion, tool marks, and the marble's characteristics offered both evidence for and against its authenticity. For example, the statue exhibits a subtle indication of motion towards the right, considered a strong piece of evidence for its genuineness. Yet, differences in sculpting techniques and the unusual application of tools raised doubts among some scholars. Archaic Kouros typically exhibit unique features that tie them to specific regions or periods. In contrast, the Getty Kouros seem to be a mixture of styles from various regions and periods, which did not align with any particular group of Kouros. This amalgamation of styles, combined with the immediate intuitive skepticism expressed by experts upon first viewing the statue, has been a significant factor in the debate over its authenticity. Interestingly, some experts felt an inexplicable sense of revulsion upon viewing the Getty Kouros. Yes, apparently slightly off Kouros can trigger an uncanny valley-like effect for experts. The origin of the Getty Kouros is also shrouded in mystery, adding to doubt about its authenticity. In 1983, Gianfranco Becchina, a Swiss art dealer, presented the Kouros to the Getty Museum's curator. The statue, which was then in 7 pieces, was accompanied by documentation purportedly proving its authenticity. These documents claimed that the Kouros had been part of Dr. Jean Laufenberger's private collection in Geneva, suggesting that Dr. Laufenberger had acquired it in 1930 from a Greek dealer. Notably, the documents included a letter from 1952 from a leading authority on Greek sculpture, who supposedly had authenticated the sculpture. However, the authenticity of the statue and its accompanying documents quickly came under scrutiny. Investigations by the Getty Museum uncovered several inconsistencies and anachronisms. For instance, the expert letter in favor of authenticity referenced a postal code that didn't exist until 1972. Further, a bank account mentioned in another document, supposedly from 1955, hadn't been opened until 1963. These discrepancies indicated that the documentary history of the Kouros had been fabricated, casting doubt on any claims about its provenance prior to 1983. One particularly prominent board member was strongly against the acquisition of the Kouros, as he believed it was a forgery on the basis of the inconsistent styles as well as the provenance issues. The controversy over the statue's authenticity divided the Getty Board of Trustees, with prominent board members resigning in response to the controversy. Once the most prominent opponents of the acquisition were off the board, the remaining board members proceeded to acquire the Getty Kouros for $10 million in 1986. After numerous tests over the course of the 90s, the Getty Kouros museum label indicated, quote, Greek origin about 530 BC or modern forgery. In 2018, in response to the overwhelming evidence that the Getty Kouros is indeed a forgery, it was removed from public display. In my view, this doesn't close the unsolved mystery of the Getty Kouros, but rather opens up an even greater mystery. Who forged this object which tricked the art world? The artist behind the Getty Kouros demonstrated extraordinary skill and an intimate understanding of ancient Greek sculpture. This forger didn't merely imitate, they delved into the essence of Greek art, mastering the stylistic nuances and anatomical details characteristic of early Greek Kouros. The attention to form, posture, and the subtleties of human anatomy suggests not only technical prowess, but also a deep study of archaeological and historical precedents. The forger's work was so masterful that the majority of experts at the time were fooled, as indicated by the fact the object sold for a whopping $10 million. Despite this, the forger's mastery of the style was betrayed by minor anachronistic errors, which caught the attention of the most astute experts. This case really makes me wonder how many other significant art pieces are actually modern forgeries. Jimmy here, the YouTuber behind the Lazy Chill Zone channel. If you're enjoying my content, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and the notification bell. I've said it before numerous times, but my goal is to create the most expansive iceberg series in YouTube history, and I want you all along for the ride. Consider signing up for a YouTube membership and joining the Patreon. Your support allows me to tackle more controversial issues that risk my videos getting demonetized. Also, remember to join the Discord community. We've got well over 50 members now, and the community is super active. Click the link in the description. The Curious George Mandela Effect. The Curious George Mandela Effect centers on the widespread, supposedly false memory of the beloved children's book character, Curious George, having a tail. The character of Curious George first appeared in the 1930s and has been a staple of children's literature since. The fact that he is often referred to as a good little monkey, and the general association of monkeys with having tails, likely contribute to the widespread belief in his having one. However, a deeper look into the character's history and illustrations confirms that Curious George has never officially been depicted with a tail, a revelation that surprises many. This phenomenon is a classic example of the Mandela effect, wherein a significant number of people share a vivid but supposedly incorrect memory of a fact or event. However, this Mandela effect has an extremely interesting twist, which I'll reveal at the end of this section. Studies have delved into the Mandela effect, seeking to understand why such false memories occur. One notable investigation examined several instances of the Mandela effect, including the specific case of Curious George's tail. If anyone is interested in checking out this study directly, it's called the Visual Mandela Effect, as evidence for shared and specific false memories across people, and authored by Prasad and Bainbridge. This study involved multiple phases, ranging from analyzing how often incorrect features appear in common depictions to directly asking participants to draw characters from memory. Remarkably, even when participants claimed to be very familiar with the subjects, including Curious George, the inaccuracies, such as the non-existent tail, persisted in their drawings. In the case of Curious George, our minds associate monkey with the inclusion of a tail, leading to the incorrect assumption that George must have one too. But wait, there's more. Curious George was depicted as having a tail in at least one instance, albeit as a licensed comic. In the 1950s, a British maple syrup company licensed the usage of Curious George for their products. Note that Curious George was called Zozo at the time in the British market to avoid any associations of King George VI with a monkey. In this licensed comic, which you can see on screen, Curious George, under the Zozo moniker, was depicted with a tail. As this was a licensed usage of the Curious George intellectual property, it may be argued that this is a canonical depiction of Curious George with a tail. However, even if it is a non-canonical depiction, the existence of some media with Curious George with a tail is an interesting potential, quote, solution to the tail problem. That said, this is definitely one of those cases where it's necessary to employ Occam's razor. To put it in a logical formulation, even a caveman could understand. Curious George is monkey. Monkey have tail. Curious George have tail. The quest for the tomb of Jesus revolves around a few key locations, each backed by varying degrees of archaeological, historical, and scriptural evidence. The primary contenders are the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Garden Tomb, and the Talpiot family tomb, with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre being the most widely accepted and revered among these. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, also known as the Church of the Resurrection, located in the Christian quarter of Jerusalem's Old City, is considered amongst the holiest site for many Christians worldwide. Tradition, dating back to the 4th century, holds that it houses both the site of Jesus' crucifixion at Calvary and his empty tomb, where he is believed to have been buried and resurrected. The Roman Emperor Constantine the Great established the church in the 4th century, officially marking it as the site of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. The church has been destroyed and rebuilt multiple times throughout history. Notably, the Fatimid Caliph demolished the church in 1009 AD in a fit of extreme intolerance. It was rebuilt decades later under the patronage of the Byzantine emperor and with approval of a subsequent more tolerant Fatimid ruler. The Garden Tomb, discovered in 1867 and located outside the current walls of Jerusalem, is considered by some as an alternative site. British General Charles Gordon promoted it as the true site of Christ's burial, citing its proximity to a skull-shaped hill, which he believed aligned with the biblical Golgotha. However, many scholars argue against its authenticity as Jesus' burial site due to archaeological evidence suggesting it predates the burial of Jesus by several centuries. The Talpiot family tomb, which gained attention from a 2007 documentary, is another cited location. Found in 1980, it was initially proposed as the family tomb of Jesus, due to ossuaries inscribed with names associated with Jesus and his family. However, this claim has been widely discredited by scholars who point out the commonality of the names and the unlikely scenario of a family from Nazareth owning a rock-cut tomb in Jerusalem. Further evidence against this is the fact that Jesus' family was decidedly not wealthy, and rock-cut tombs were unsurprisingly reserved exclusively for the elite. Despite the differing opinions on the exact location, the historical and spiritual significance of Jesus' tomb remains undiminished. Each potential site provides a unique perspective on the geographical and cultural context of early Christianity. While it is likely the actual location is lost to time, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands out for its long-standing tradition, archaeological evidence, and central role in Christian worship and pilgrimage. Also, in a future episode, I'll be covering a very interesting claim to the tomb of Jesus, which is so bizarre it requires its own entry. For now, I'll just say, it involves Jesus getting off the cross and traveling halfway around the world to start a successful garlic farming operation. Does Yoshi appear in Pokemon Red and Blue? Back in the 1990s, it was common for kids on the schoolyard to come up with wild stories about how to obtain hidden Pokemon in Pokemon Red and Blue. While some of these rumors did turn out to be true, for instance, how to catch a missing No, a glitch Pokemon from the first generation, most were entirely false. One lesser-known example of this phenomenon is the idea that Yoshi appeared in Pokemon Red and Blue as a Dragon-type Pokemon. This rumor started in an issue of Expert Gamer magazine and included a guide as to how to evolve a Dragonite into a Yoshi. By way of background, Expert Gamer, abbreviated as XG because it was the 90s and everything had to have an X to let you know it was quote-unquote extreme, was published from 1998 to 2001. The magazine was a spin-off of the much better-known Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine, also known as EGM, and was designed with a younger audience in mind. In the April 1999 issue, Expert Gamer magazine provided instructions on how to supposedly get Yoshi, and as usual for these rumors, it is convoluted and difficult. According to this issue, 2 copies of the game were required. red, and blue, both of which had captured all 150 Pokemon. The supposed instructions are as follows. The blue version receives a Dratini from the red version. The blue version evolves the Dratini to a Dragonite and then trades it back to the red version. The red version then must head to the unknown dungeon and stand closest to where Mewtwo was and use a Firestone on Dragonite. At this point, the screen will glitch and Dragonite will evolve into Yoshi. Unsurprisingly, given that this was an April 1999 issue, this was actually an April Fool's joke. To make the joke even more obvious, the hidden Yoshi trick was apparently a fan submission by a reader named J. Esther. Quite a clever wordplay, if I do say so myself. I note that unlike other Pokemon-based rumors, I'm unable to find any convincing evidence that anyone ever believed that Yoshi could be obtained in-game. Let me know in the comments if you have any memories of this rumor or any other rumors surrounding Pokemon. The Wakayama Curry Arsenic Slayings. Masumi Hayashi, born on July 22, 1961, became one of Japan's most infamous criminals after she was convicted for a horrific act of mass poisoning during a summer festival in 1998. On July 25, 1998, Hayashi poisoned a communal pot of curry with arsenic at a festival in Wakayama, resulting in one of the deadliest poisoning cases in Japanese history. The poisoned curry led to the ends of 4 individuals, 2 children and 2 adults, while 63 others suffered from acute arsenic poisoning. Hayashi's motives for committing such a heinous act remain complex and partially speculative. A witness reported seeing Hayashi near the curry pot, and her access to arsenic was facilitated by her husband's profession as an exterminator. Hayashi, an insurance saleswoman, and her husband were also indicted on insurance fraud charges for activities prior to the poisoning. It has been suggested that her motives for the poisoning were rooted in personal vendettas against members of her community. She had previously been tried for 3 other attempted slayings by poison, with the presumed motive in those cases being to benefit from life insurance policies. She is suspected to have been jealous and upset at her neighbors for shunning her and her family. I note that this is a questionable motive, given that Hayashi had previously attempted to slay her own husband with arsenic to collect life insurance. I just want to know what sort of logic was at play there. It's totally fine for her to attempt to off her husband, but it's not okay for the neighbors to not want to associate with said husband. The trial and conviction of Hayashi were marked by controversy and debate, primarily due to the reliance entirely on circumstantial evidence. Despite pleading innocent, she was sentenced to ending in 2002, a sentence upheld by the Osaka High Court in 2005 and the Supreme Court of Japan in 2009. She has been denied the ability for a retrial on 3 separate occasions. However, as yet she remains amongst the living, the deed not yet carried out by the state. Hayashi's case has sparked discussions about the possibility of false accusations, given the lack of direct evidence and unclarified motives. Some have speculated that the neighbors hated Hayashi and knew that she was a dangerous poisoner, and thus attempted to co-opt her modus operandi to frame her for a crime and remove her. Under this theory, the individual or individuals who framed her unfortunately used too much arsenic, leading to the horrific results. In favor of this position is the fact that Hayashi had access to enough arsenic to end everyone at the curry festival if she wanted to. The fallout from Hayashi's actions has had a lasting impact not only on the victims and their families, but also on her own family. In another tragic turn of events, in June 2021, Hayashi's eldest daughter and granddaughter were ended by the hands of the eldest daughter. The eldest daughter of Hayashi then proceeded to depart from the land of the living by her own hands. Was Jochi the biological son of Genghis Khan? The question of whether Jochi, the eldest son of Genghis Khan, was biologically his, intrigued contemporaneous Mongol elites, as well as scholars, ever since. The historical context surrounding this paternity mystery is complex, shaped by the Mongolian Empire's vast conquests, Genghis Khan's relationships, and the political intricacies of the era. Jochi was born around 1182, just after a time when his mother, Borte, who would become famous as Genghis Khan's primary wife, had been kidnapped by a rival tribe. Borte spent a number of months in captivity where she was, to use the terminology of the time, given to one of her abductors as a concubine, or secondary, quote, wife. Genghis Khan, being a well-known man of action, successfully rescued his wife, and a few months later, Borte gave birth to baby Jochi, the man who ought to have been his successor. Despite this, Genghis Khan recognized Jochi as his son, and he played a significant role in the Mongol Empire's military campaigns and governance. And yes, Genghis Khan, responsible for more human suffering than almost anyone in history, had enough humanity and compassion to recognize the difference between a father and a dad. Seriously, I know guys who've slain 20 million less people who don't get this difference. However, there is circumstantial evidence to indicate that Genghis Khan, while recognizing Jochi as his son, was concerned about leaving his legacy to Jochi and his children. The succession controversy that emerged later in Genghis Khan's life further complicates the issue of Jochi's paternity. During a Kurultai, a political and military council, in 1222, the issue of Jochi's paternity was raised by his brother Chagatai. As an aside, I'm guessing that Thanksgiving must have been awkward for Genghis Khan's family that year. This challenge of Jochi's legitimacy led Genghis Khan to affirm his first son publicly. This was a question of extreme significance. Birth order was a significant factor in determining tribal succession. Further yet, if he was not Genghis Khan's son, he would not be entitled to anything by way of Mongol tribal succession. I note that male birth order was not the only factor at play in Mongol tribal succession, and proven prowess in battle was also required to command respect as a successor. However, given his significant military accomplishments throughout Genghis Khan's campaigns, there can be no doubt that he met this threshold for achievements. Despite the clear affirmation, Genghis Khan eventually chose his third son, Ogedei, as his successor. This was also done to avoid further disputes among his sons, indicating the delicate balance he sought to maintain within his empire upon his passing. Jochi's significant territorial inheritance from Genghis Khan spanned the westernmost part of the Mongol Empire, primarily in Eastern Europe and parts of Central Asia. Notably, this is some of the territory that was previously ruled by great steppe conquerors of Europe such as the Huns and the Khazars. Jochi's descendants played significant roles in the Mongol Empire's expansion and governance, particularly in the formation of the Golden Horde. The Golden Horde is perhaps best known at present for being the state that oppressed the Russian principalities for centuries before the Muscovites, quote, threw off the Tatar yoke. His son Batu extended Mongol sovereignty to its westernmost extent, with Mongol expeditionary forces briefly reaching as far west as the Holy Roman Empire. And as a quick aside from some minor skirmishes, no major battles occurred in the Holy Roman Empire, and Mongol forces would never again threaten this empire. And in a footnote to the mystery of Jochi's paternity, a study in 2019 compared known descendants of a Yuan emperor with known descendants of Jochi and found a close relationship between the two. As the Yuan emperors were definite descendants of Genghis Khan, this strongly suggests Genghis Khan was the biological father. Further, Borte was only kidnapped for a few months, and she gave birth a few months after being returned from captivity. If this timeline is correct, This suggests that it would be impossible for the kidnapper to be the true biological father of Jochi. Also, I've been wanting to drop a variant of this line since I started this. Genghis Khan, you are the father. The Wampus Cat. The Wampus Cat is an American cryptid derived from the folklore of rural Appalachian and Cherokee myths and legends. According to Cherokee legend, the Wampus Cat is a woman who harnessed the spirit of a mountain cat to ward off an evil spirit. The physical description of the Wampus Cat varies widely, reflecting the various narratives and perceptions surrounding the creature. It is often depicted with glowing yellow eyes, a feature consistently noted for its eerie, piercing quality that contributes to the creature's mythology. Its body is generally likened to that of a mountain lion, but variations exist, including descriptions of the creature possessing 6 legs or the torso of a woman, accentuating its hybrid nature and supernatural origins. Despite numerous and varied portrayals, the Wampus Cat is always depicted as a figure inspiring both awe and fear. The descriptions of the Wampus Cat very clearly resemble cougars, also known as mountain lions or pumas, which were once common in the Appalachians. Misidentification, especially under poor lighting or from a distance, could lead people to believe they've encountered a supernatural creature. Notably, sightings of the Wampus Cat used to be quite common, especially in the 19th and early to mid-20th centuries. These sightings have dramatically decreased in recent years, so much so that the Wampus Cat's name alone evokes a different era. Given that cougars are now functionally extinct in the eastern United States, aside from western cougars which have wandered far outside their range, this explains the sharp decline in Wampus Cat sightings. The Beam Me Up Scotty enigma. If I did interviews for this series, and I asked 100 people what character said the famous line, "Beam me up, Scotty," what answer do you think I would get? I'll give you a second here, but I'm sure if you know of this character, you've already got it. It was Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek series, of course. Well, if that was your answer, you're absolutely wrong. Captain Kirk never said, "Beam me up, Scotty," nor did anyone say it. Despite its strong association with Star Trek, this exact phrase was never uttered in the series by anyone in any canonical Star Trek capacity. Captain Kirk uttered similar phrases such as "beam me up" and "Mr. Scott, beam us up," but the full phrase was never said by William Shatner in a canonical context. The phrase's misquotation has not hindered its popularity. Instead, it has been embraced widely across different media and contexts. The misunderstanding surrounding "Beam Me Up, Scotty" likely stems from its essence being captured in multiple episodes without the exact phrase being spoken. There is no doubt that the core meaning of "Beam Me Up, Scotty" is found throughout Star Trek. Therefore, when the phrase "Beam Me Up, Scotty" entered pop culture and started being repeated by people with only a passing familiarity with the show, this contagion grew mimetically through society. Despite this, many individuals have theorized that "Beam Me Up, Scotty" is a Mandela effect, claiming that they absolutely know they heard Captain Kirk vocalize this in an episode of Star Trek. In my view, "Beam Me Up, Scotty" works so well as a general catchphrase, as it functions as a clear reference to Star Trek, which has been an extremely popular series since the 1960s. Imagine if you were attempting to use the catchphrase with a friend group who only had a passing familiarity with Star Trek, and you just said, quote, "Beam me up." There's a good chance you would get some strange looks, and you wouldn't say it again. But now imagine you said, "Beam me up, Scotty," and got some laughs or a positive response. You may use the phrase again, or one of the people who enjoyed it may use it themselves. In my view, this is yet another quote-unquote Mandela effect, which has a very simple and straightforward explanation. Also, by way of trivia, William Shatner said, "Beam me up, Scotty," in the audiobook of a non-canonical licensed Star Trek book written by none other than William Shatner himself. The Amishi people. These people, also known by several other names such as the Ezo, played a significant role in ancient Japanese history, particularly in the Tohoku region of Honshu. The first historical mention of the Emishi comes from the Book of Song in or around 478 AD, which mentioned the land of Wa, modern Japan, having a hairy barbarian king. Their presence and interactions with the Yamato state, the ancient Japanese polity, reveal a complex history of conflict, cultural exchange, and eventual assimilation. The Emishi were located primarily in the present-day Tohoku region in the northern part of Honshu, the main Japanese island. The Emishi were described in foundational Japanese texts like the Nihon Shoki with a mix of fascination and disdain, often portrayed as barbaric and uncivilized. These descriptions, however, likely reflect more on the Yamato state's perspectives and their justification for conquest, rather than the actual practices of these people. They are believed to have descended from the Jomon people, the original inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago. They are also believed to be closely related both ethnically and culturally to the Ainu people, who were able to survive assimilation into the Japanese state due to their remote location in Hokkaido. And for those wondering, Hokkaido, though now part of modern Japan, was only conquered by the Japanese in 1869, just after the Meiji Restoration. This interaction with Yayoi culture is evidenced by the presence of emishi kofun, or ancient burial mounds, in Tohoku, previously thought to be exclusive to the Yamato culture. Some of these kofun in Tohoku are now considered to possibly have been built by independent emishi chiefs, rather than Yamato tributaries. The Yamato state's expansion northward involved numerous military campaigns aimed at subduing the Emishi. The campaigns against the Emishi people began as early as the 7th century AD, but may have begun even earlier. Early attempts to invade and colonize what would become the Tohoku region of Honshu were unsuccessful. Much like almost everything in early Japan, the early imperial Japanese armies were based on the imperial armies of China. Unfortunately for the early Japanese imperial state, they did not have the wealth of manpower to call upon to fight the, quote, barbarians on their borders. These early invasions were largely unsuccessful, with the Emishi people employing clever usage of guerrilla tactics and superior knowledge of the land. Importantly, the Emishi, apparently not having access to stirrup technology, adapted a unique style of horse archery which decimated imperial Japanese forces. Notably, the Japanese developed their own style of mounted combat and horseback archery in response to the Emishi, eventually leading to the rise of the samurai class. While samurai are today associated with Nihonto, the various styles of Japanese swords, including the most famous, the katana, this intense focus on swordsmanship was an Edo period development. These early samurai focused almost entirely on mounted combat with spears, as well as horse archery techniques developed from contact with the emishi. Further, the title shogun, which will be familiar to many viewers, originally referred to an individual who was assigned the task of conquering the emishi or putting down their rebellions. By the early 9th century, the emishi had largely been formally conquered, but just because they had been conquered doesn't mean they had been quelled. Emishi resistance continued for centuries, highlighting their resilience and the difficulties the Yamato state faced in controlling and effectively governing the region. By the middle of the Heian period, resisting emishi were gradually pushed further north, while non-resistors assimilated into Japanese society, leading to a blend of cultures in the region. For instance, many of the most prominent families in Tohoku claim to be of emishi descent. There are a number of mysteries related to the emishi people. For instance, It is not entirely certain that they are related to the Ainu people, as there are no known remains of, quote, pure Emishi people. Further, the Emishi are a subject of great fascination in Japan, with particular focus on how long Emishi villages continued to survive past the Heian period. At present, it's speculated that remote villages may have continued to thrive for centuries before eventually assimilating to general Tohoku Japanese culture. That said, importantly, it remains an open question as to how much of traditional Tohoku Japanese culture is actually Emishi culture itself. If you've ever seen the Studio Ghibli film Princess Mononoke, the main characters are Emishi and have many of the traits associated with them, including proficiency in mounted archery. The disappearance of David Thies. David Thies, a 21-year-old man from Manhattan, New York, mysteriously vanished on December 13, 1982, and has not been heard from since. The circumstances surrounding David's disappearance remain largely unclear, contributing to the enduring mystery. On the date in question, David's mother reported that he was exhibiting paranoid behaviors, such as rapidly shifting through TV channels, apparently being concerned about what he was seeing. Around 4 p.m., David's mother reported that he left the apartment to smoke. Despite having made plans for his father's birthday that evening, David never returned to the apartment. Despite exhaustive efforts, there has been no subsequent contact or confirmed sighting of David post-disappearance. Interestingly, after a large reward for information regarding his whereabouts was posted, over 40 tips came in indicating that he was living in California. Adding another layer of depth to the mystery, some of these reports indicated that he was seen associating with cultists at a commune. However, some of the other reports indicated that he was involved in the illicit drug trade in California, again raising further questions without any answers. Despite these numerous sightings, none of them were confirmed. If you have any information in relation to the disappearance of David Thies, please contact the New York City Police Department. The slaying of Florence Keeble. Florence Ann Keeble's disappearance and subsequent slaying in 1976 remains one of Halifax, Canada's most enduring mysteries. On October 29, 1976, Keeble, a 17-year-old student, was reported missing from school. Friends reported that she attended a baby shower the next day, followed by another get-together on Old Sambro Road around 1:30 p.m. that same day. The following day, her body was discovered by two hunters in a heavily wooded area, approximately 350 yards off Old Sambro Road. This grim discovery led to an extensive investigation by the Halifax Regional Police, marking the beginning of a case that has spanned over 4 decades without resolution. The Halifax Police continue to investigate the case and have advised that they've developed credible theories of the case. However, specific details about these theories are not publicly disclosed to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Despite the passage of time, a $150,000 reward remains open for details leading to the resolution of Florence Keeble's case. If you have any information with respect to this case, please contact the Halifax Regional Police. The Gurdon Light, an atmospheric ghost light located near Gurdon, Arkansas, has been a subject of fascination and speculation for almost a century. First sighted in the early 1930s, this mysterious phenomenon appears along the railroad tracks in a wooded area near Gurdon. It draws attention for its eerie, floating glow, which has been described as blue, green, white, or orange, with a bobbing movement. The legend surrounding the Gurdon Light is deeply intertwined with the town's history, notably connected to a tragic event in 1931. The slaying of William McLean, a railroad worker. The lore suggests that shortly after McLean's slaying, the light was first observed, leading many to speculate that it's related to his spirit in some form or another. Various theories have attempted to explain the Gurdon light, ranging from scientific explanations to more supernatural accounts. Skeptics and researchers have proposed that the light could be a reflection of headlights from nearby Interstate 30. However, this theory is contested by the fact that sightings of the light predate the construction of the interstate. Others have suggested that it could be explained by natural phenomena such as swamp gas or ball lightning. The Gurdon light has also been linked to the story of a railroad worker who was parted from his head in an accident, with the light purportedly being his lantern as he searches for his head. This narrative, however, is likely more folklore than fact, as there are no apparent records of such an accident occurring in the area. That said, documentation in the 1930s is not always available today, though generally an event like this would have been covered by a local news outlet. Despite various investigations and theories, the true nature of the Gurdon light remains a mystery. It continues to attract both locals and visitors, especially around Halloween, when the desire to experience the unexplained draws crowds to the area. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for new content. Like I said at the start, I upload 3 to 5 times per week, and you don't want to miss any new content. Also, get involved in the Lazy Chill Zone community by chilling with like-minded individuals in the Discord channel. The link is in the description. Remember to check out the Patreon and the YouTube membership as well. Also remember to hit the playlist to see dozens of hours of Unsolved Mysteries content. Shout out to my patrons Kazak Cutie, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z Volts, Director Delta, Unknown Delusions, and Blasphemous. Also, big shout out to YouTube members Jordan All and Syntax Nexus. Also to every viewer and listener, I love you so much. Thanks for all your support. I'm so happy to have you along for the ride. Until next time, stay safe and healthy. Peace out, everyone.